Yes, I think again this is another story that's rumbled on for a long time, and we were again the kind of narrative that we've seen. There was uh, two bids on the table for Manchester United. Apparently speaking, one was a full takeover from Qatar, and one was Jim Ratcliffe, and what the Glazers had kind of said all the way through was that, and again, this is some interesting subplots. I don't know whether or not they were ever fully wanting to sell in terms of a full stake, but the narrative was when they went out for investment in the club, they were asked whether or not they would consider a full sale, and they said if the offer is right, we will consider it. And that's then sparked this, bit of a bidding war, if you like, for one of the world's biggest football clubs. But as we're talking right now, we're led to believe that the Qatar bid is off the table, a full takeover, and that the Jim Ratcliffe bid has been repositioned so that he would acquire a minority stake, albeit a significant, 25%, but it would be still in terms of a minority stake. So he could invest into Manchester United. There's been talk of him taking over the football operations side of things. But then, of course, with the Glazers still being involved with the other shareholding. So, yeah, it's gone a long way from about a year or so ago now when the investment was first courted to maybe a full takeover. And now we're kind of back at maybe a partial investment for 25% from Jim Ratcliffe. Yeah, I think you can still, get significant control in operations for 25%. I think especially if you overlay that with the fact that he might then take over the football operation side of things, and there's been talk of that would give even further level of control that is potentially above just the stakeholding. So you're still very much involved in the decision making process at that level. You have considerable power in the boardroom. You don't have the overall say, of course, but you have a fairly substantial voice. And if you were to add in, as I say, the football operations side of things, that would be a fairly significant stake. And then, as you say, you're looking at the bigger picture of potentially what comes in the future. So, if that person is if a full takeover was a potential before, and it's not quite working out that way now, then does that open up the door for maybe a full takeover in the future? I think those options are still on the table. And as I say, if you are, Jim Ratcliffe and that's the longer term plan, then getting your foot in the door for 25% is not a bad way to, to build it through. But I do think there is this also, in the back of the Glazers' minds, whether or not they'll come out and say this publicly. I think they're also very much aware that there is still value to be extracted from Manchester United from an overall valuation point of view, which then means that, if they're seeing that and seeing the potential for growth in the market, then they might be wanting to stick around a little bit longer to realise some of that growth in the future. So I think this kind of deal sort of, it's one of those where you look at it and it probably benefits all parties at this point in time. Again, that might not please everybody, but I think from a business point of view, you can see the narrative within that. Yeah, I think this is the tricky thing with football club valuations. I think if you look at, the kind of traditional balance sheet metrics and revenue multipliers and the way in which you would measure a normal business, a lot of those don't ring true in football clubs because of all the other intangible stuff. So if you look at, people will talk about Manchester United being a 4 or 5 billion pound business, which is based on the numbers and the balance sheet and the kind of position that we can see. But what you've got to overlay over the top of that is the brand of Manchester United, the badge, the history, the heritage, the fact that it is Manchester United. And then you've got this other thing over the top of that of where the untapped potential is in different markets. And that's linked to digital footprint and fans and followers. And what clubs have not been able to do yet is extract a lot of direct value from those fans. But if you can start to imagine a model whereby you can start to get money from fans all the way around the world through selling your own subscription services, or the TV market changing so that you can sell some of your own games, getting things around how fans interact with the club. And if you can start to convert that into real cash, then the value of the club only goes up. So it's not then it's quite feasible then that you can get to a valuation of 6-7 billion pounds for Manchester United, with a lot of that being off balance sheet, and you've got to go and realise that potential. But I think that's what the Glazers are aware of as well, and that then makes the 6-7 billion pound valuation more realistic in the future if you can achieve that. So it's certainly feasible for me, and I think, as I say, Manchester United are one of those organisations in football terms that, despite the recent lack of on-pitch success, have been able to still hold their own commercially and grow, and the power that that brings in terms of the fans they've got all the way around the world, there is some possibility there that you can grow that brand in the future and in turn then grow the value.